This commenter asks, how would you suggest I help my dog if I can't afford training right now? He does well around other dogs, he gets enough sleep, exercise, mental stimulation, he plays well with other dogs, but when we see other dogs on walk, the commenter goes on to say the dog gets excited and lunges toward them wanting to play. He's not vocalizing, and if she tries to get him to turn and go the other way, he often runs the other direction. So my first step would be management. And that would be true whether I was at the beginning of engaging in a training plan or if I wanted to do management only because for whatever reason, training is not accessible right now. Management is going to prevent the behavior from being reinforced. It's going to prevent negative associations from strengthening. It's going to keep everyone safe, and it's going to prevent stacking of stressors. So in other words, I would want to prevent the rehearsal of this behavior. And how much management or what type of management my dog needs is going to depend on what their threshold is, how much avoidance do we need. And when we are dealing with excitement, positive emotions, we really just need to be careful not to cross the line where the dog is no longer redirectable and they are not engaging in the unwanted behaviors like the lunging. When we're looking at something like fear or anxiety, we ideally are even further down the stress scale because the dog is likely fearful or anxious long before they're actually getting to the point of the reaction. But it's okay if your dog is a little bit excited. You just want to redirect them before they get close enough or whatever the threshold may be that they are engaging in that unwanted behavior. It's less about worrying about strengthening negative emotions, negative associations rather. If this were a case in front of me, this were the information that I was being presented, some things that I would want to know include, I would want to know if this big excitement, big arousal is a chronic generalized thing that is popping up in other areas of the dog's life, or if this is specific to getting excited when they see other dog friends on leash. My clients are generally experiencing chronic hyperarousal. So they have a higher than ideal baseline stress level, and they often struggle with resilience to stress and self-regulating. If I have a dog who is just situationally overexcited, I might be less concerned about underlying variables like pain, for example. So hyperarousal can be a mask for underlying pain, where I'm going to be less worried about that with just acute excitement about seeing other dogs and wanting to play. I'm also going to want to get an idea of how high this dog is getting on the stress scale. Because if I'm working with a dog where they're starting excited, but they're going all the way into like a red zone response, that's a problem. That's not healthy for my dog. If they're moving more into a spot where they're excited, but they're still in their thinking brain for the most part, maybe they're getting adrenalized, but they're not to the point where they're getting like frustrated. And it sounds like the dog in the comments is fairly redirectable. It sounds like the commenter can call the dog away and the dog moves in the other direction. And I would wonder if the reason they're running in the other direction is because they're adrenalized. I don't know, of course, about this specific dog, but these are some of the things that I would wonder. And if things are continuing in the direction where I'm saying this is an acute concern, we're seeing healthy levels of stress, if maybe higher than we want them to be in that moment. The dog is resetting to a healthy baseline. I might wonder if this dog is I might look to see if their social needs are being satiated appropriately. And that's another thing I would want to look at, is I would want to look at the play. Is the dog actually at an appropriate level of arousal in their play with other dogs? Is it actually play? Because sometimes we confuse other things for play. So I would want to make sure that this is consensual, that I'm seeing meta signals, that there's a good ebb and flow, there's the ability to self-regulate. I would also want to know if this dog has an expectation of sometimes they're able to meet other dogs on leash, so they have this expectation about meeting dogs on leash. I might see if there's any confusion that I could clear up there without creating frustration. I might also be curious to know if this dog is in adolescence. A lot of adolescence can be about management until the dog's thinking brain comes back online as an adult. As far as further accessing support for the dog when one can't afford training, there are a lot of trainers or behavior consultants who offer financial accessibility options, such as sliding scale, payment plans, scholarship funds. We have some programs like that, although we do work exclusively with dysregulation. There can also be a lot of good information online. It's just a matter of weeding out the good information from the bad information, and then being able to navigate the nuance of what is going on in your specific case. We have a lot of resources alphabetized by category in our Google document, and we're constantly updating that. And so there are a lot of good resources in there around things like pattern games, helping dogs calm, flight cues, engage, disengage, the circle method, as well as specific exercises, as well as topics like stress in dogs, dog-dog interactions, body language, and behavior. I think 2 important rules of thumb are that you want to avoid the rehearsal of the unwanted behavior. And so things are not going the way you want them to go if part of the approach to addressing the behavior involves the dog rehearsing the unwanted behavior. And the other side of that, and a very, very important side of that, is that we also are not trying to suppress the behavior. So we don't want to do anything that punishes or suppresses the behavior. We want to look at the function of the behavior. So we're looking at setting the dog up to be successful. And so if something happens that we don't want to happen, that is a mistake in our environmental setup. It's not something that we then want to apply some sort of stimuli that suppresses the behavior, whether that's saying no or leash pops or things like that. And when we can't work actively on behavior modification, management is a great way to go. And we have some resources in our Google document under the management section specifically on getting outside with a reactive dog.